हे एवरीवन, इट्स मी हमज़ैन, यू आर वाचिंग HTTX। वेलकम बैक टू द चैनल। कैसे हैं आप सब? ठीक ठाक हैं। हमें एक वीडियो सजेस्ट किया गया है। टाइटल पहले बता देता हूँ मैं, वो है ग्रेविटास प्लस इंडिया एंड रशिया अ टाइम टेस्टेड फ्रेंडशिप। तो अनलाइक पाकिस्तान एंड चाइना फ्रेंडशिप, जो कि कह लें कि ज़रूरती फ्रेंडशिप है, इंडिया और रशिया की फ्रेंडशिप ज़रूरत वाली नहीं है। तो बाकी पहले वीडियो देख लेते हैं, अच्छी तरह से वीडियो देखते हैं, फिर बात करेंगे। तो आइए शुरू करते हैं। 3 2 1 एंड गो।
In 1971, when India and Pakistan went to war over the humanitarian crisis in East Pakistan, the forces arrayed against India were formidable. Aircraft from Jordan, Iran, Turkey, and France were bolstering the Pakistani military. The US and the UK were providing moral and naval support. That both dispatched warships to the Indian Ocean. It was a coordinated plan to intimidate India. British ships would target India's western coast. Americans would make a dash in the Bay of Bengal. To counter this multi-dimensional threat, New Delhi sent out an SOS call. It urged global powers for support. And there was only one country that listened, the Soviet Union. It dispatched a fleet of naval vessels from Vladivostok, a number of nuclear-armed ships and atomic submarines. They encircled American and British warships, stopped them from entering India's territorial waters, and prevented a direct clash between India and the US-UK combined. Moscow was a reliable partner for New Delhi when no one else was, as Washington consistently ignored India's concerns and sided with Pakistan. Today, the story from 1971 may be a little more than a fond memory, but its geopolitical underpinnings still remain intact. Yes, there have been some minor hiccups and interruptions, but Moscow remains one of India's most dependable partners. And this week, this partnership will enter its next phase. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. On the 6th of December, India will receive a rather special guest, the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. The visit is important. Its symbolism cannot be downplayed. This is the second time President Putin is stepping out of Russia this year. The first was in June to meet US President Biden in Geneva, and since then he has skipped visits to the G20, the climate summit in Glasgow, and rescheduled his tour of China. He will now come to India first. This indicates Russia's abiding interest in its relationship with India, a relationship that has withstood the test of time and geopolitical churns. It helps to begin with history. It's hard to put a date, but India and Russia have known each other for centuries. All the way back to the 4th century, Russia used to be a transit trade route between Europe and India. Indian merchants would frequently visit Moscow, Astrakhan, and St. Petersburg. Russian travelers would visit Indian cities, document the culture and people in their tales. In the 18th century, Russia's last reigning empress, Catherine the Great, published the first Russian translation of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 19th century, Russian Tsar Paul I planned to invade British India to weaken the British Empire. The Tsar was assassinated, the plan was cancelled. Now, for most of modern history, relations between India and Russia remained tepid, even after the creation of the Soviet Union in 1922, and this was largely because Stalin did not think very highly of India, or should I say the leaders of India's independence movement. He thought of them as quote-unquote running dogs of imperialism, as tools of British and capitalist forces. He considered Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru as agents of counter-revolutionary forces. A staunch communist revolutionary, Stalin viewed their fight for independence as a conspiracy of the bourgeoisie aimed at keeping monopoly capitalism alive. So in 1947, when India became independent, Stalin reacted with open hostility, something he maintained till his death in 1953. India-Russia relations remained cold until then. The ice broke in 1955 under the leadership of Nikita Khrushchev. He visited India that year and laid the foundation of an economic partnership. And for the next 6 years, Russia embarked on what they call de-Stalinization, a process which brought India closer to Russia. Moscow upheld Indian sovereignty in Kashmir, also over Goa, which used to be a Portuguese enclave. Around the same time, a rift emerged between China and Russia. The Chinese began viewing the Soviets with suspicion. They regarded Khrushchev's policies as a revisionist version of communism. Mao decided to disengage with Moscow. So it came as no surprise that in 1962, when India went to war with China, the Soviet Union maintained neutrality, and by doing so, it exceeded expectations it was never meant to meet. Moscow's refusal to back China was extremely significant. India began placing more trust in Russia. In 1970, when India conducted its first nuclear test, Washington was critical. It lectured India. In contrast, Moscow stressed on the peaceful nature of the test. And India responded in kind. When the world slammed Moscow over its involvement in Hungary and the Czech Republic, India remained quiet. Even after the Soviet Union disintegrated, bilateral ties did not suffer. Yes, there were some ups and downs, but at the end of the day, the logic of geopolitics prevailed. Today, it manifests itself in every sphere. Take economy, for instance. Bilateral trade between India and Russia stands at $8.1 billion. Indian exports amount to $2.6 billion. Russian imports are at $5.48 billion. By 2025, they plan to take bilateral trade to $25 billion. In politics, both India and Russia collaborate at platforms like the UN, G20, BRICS, and SCO. In fact, it's often said that Russia brought India into the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, in a bid to counter China. Then we come to defense. India is the second largest market for the Russian defense industry. Russia accounts for 68% of India's military hardware import, followed by the United States and Israel. The Indo-Russian Intergovernmental Commission is one of the largest and most comprehensive governmental mechanisms that India has with any country. Almost every department from the government of India attends it. India's foreign secretary recently stated that without Russian spare parts, our ships won't sail and our planes won't fly. Together, India and Russia have launched several joint military programs. Programs to develop state-of-the-art weapons like the BrahMos cruise missile, the Sukhoi fighter jet, the Ilyushin transport aircraft, and the Kamov twin-engine helicopters. India has also purchased and leased all kinds of military hardware from Russia, like the T-90S Bhishma battle tank, the Akula-2 nuclear submarine, the INS Vikramaditya. And how could we not mention the S-400 Triumph, the biggest bone of contention right now between India and the US. Why is that? You see, in 2018, India struck a $5.5 billion deal with Russia to buy the S-400 air defense system. The first unit is expected to be operational by the end of the year. What is the S-400? One of the most advanced and potent air defense systems in the world. It has the potential of repelling almost all sorts of aerial attacks. India needs the S-400 in order to protect itself from the growing threats from China and Pakistan. So why is the US upset? Well, multiple reasons. One, the US wants India to end its reliance on Russian weapons. More importantly, in 2017, the US Congress passed a law called CAATSA, Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, CAATSA. The aim of this law was to counter American adversaries like Iran, Russia, and North Korea, also to sanction the countries who deal with them. In 2020, the US imposed sanctions on Turkey, its long-standing NATO ally, because Turkey bought the S-400 from Russia. In January this year, a US congressional report warned that if India buys the S-400, it will be sanctioned too. Well, despite the pressure, India went ahead with the deal. Reports say India will get a waiver on CAATSA, a one-time exception. Now, these are just reports. The fact is that the US cannot afford to sanction a strategic partner and a major market like India.
हाँ जी, तो मैंने वीडियो के स्टार्ट में कहा था ना कि ये पाकिस्तान चाइना जैसी फ्रेंडशिप नहीं है। आप देखें ना कि हमारी पाकिस्तान की और चाइना की जो फ्रेंडशिप है वो गिव एंड टेक वाली है, वो कंडीशनल रही है हमेशा। ऐसा नहीं है कि अनकंडीशनल फ्रेंडशिप हो। जैसे चाइना को हमारी ज़रूरत है, वो हमारे थ्रू एक तो जो स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मोज़ है वहाँ तक आसानी से पहुँचना चाहता है गवादर के थ्रू, और दूसरा वो एक काइंड ऑफ इस ईस्टर्न बॉर्डर पे पाकिस्तान के थ्रू इंडिया को तंग रखना चाहते हैं। दूसरी जो है ना चीज़, वो ये है कि पाकिस्तान, आपको पता है पाकिस्तान के इकनॉमिकल कंडीशंस कैसी हैं, और पाकिस्तान को पैसा चाहिए, सिंपल सी बात है, और चाइना वो प्रोवाइड करता है। लेकिन अब मैं इसमें कंडीशनल और इसको फ्रेंडशिप इसलिए नहीं कहूँगा क्योंकि अगर आप किसी दोस्त की मदद करते हैं ना तो वो फिर आप शर्तें रख के नहीं करते। चाइना हमें कभी भी इंटरेस्ट फील ऑन नहीं देता, भारी भारी इंटरेस्ट लगा के देता है, और फिर अगर यहाँ इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं उस पर भी कंडीशन होती है कि हमारी इतने लेबर हमारी आएगी, इंजीनियर हमारा आएगा, डिज़ाइन हमारा आएगा, परचेजिंग सारी हमारी तरफ से होगी। तो इस तरह की बातें होती हैं। लेकिन अगर हम रशिया और इंडिया को देखें तो वहाँ पे सूरत हाल मुख्तलिफ है। वहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं कि 62 का 62-3 का वार जो इंडो साइनो वार था वो हुआ। तो अब उस वक्त सब ये समझ रहे थे कि क्योंकि स्टैलियन जो कि अ, उसके बयानात आपने वीडियो में भी सुने, तो कोई एक्सपेक्टेशन नहीं थी कि रशिया साथ देगा, बल्कि इस सब ये सोच रहे होंगे कि रशिया जो है वो या सोवियत जो है वो चाइना का साथ देगा। लेकिन उन्होंने क्या किया कि हम न्यूट्रल हैं। और ये चीज़ फिर आप देख सकते हैं कि कैसा लगा। और इससे मेरे ख्याल में बहुत सारे रास्ते खुले और फिर हमने देखा कि कोई भी थिक एंड थिन टाइम हो, ये दोनों चट्टान की तरह एक दूसरे के साथ खड़े रहे। एंड देन अब जो नया एरा स्टार्ट हुआ है और यूक्रेन कन्फ्लिक्ट में इंडिया ने किसी के साथ नहीं दिया, मतलब इनडायरेक्टली रशिया का तो साथ दिया, लेकिन न्यूट्रल नहीं हुआ। दुनिया के सामने तो न्यूट्रल है, लेकिन मुझे नहीं लगता एक इंडिया की जो पॉलिसी है वो प्रो रशियन है। मतलब अगर आप देखें ना, जयशंकर साहब ने कई बार कहा है कि यूरोप हमेशा ये कहता है कि हमारे मसले दुनिया के मसले हैं, लेकिन दुनिया के मसले हमारे मसले नहीं हैं। तो उन्होंने ऑस्ट्रिया में बैठ के ये बात कही थी। अब सबके रिलेशंस अपने अपने होते हैं। और यूक्रेन कन्फ्लिक्ट की वजह से जिस तरह से यूएस और यूरोप ने फोर्स की है बाकी दुनिया को कि यूक्रेन का साथ दो, इंडिया ने कहा कि नहीं भाई नहीं, पर्सनल मैटर है, हम किसी के झगड़े में क्यों पड़े। और बात भी ठीक है। उसके अलावा डिफेंस हो, टूरिज़्म हो, बाकी मामलात हों, क्या बात है। एंड देन S-400, मतलब यूएस की आदत है निके निके मुल्कों पे रोप डालने की। जैसे S-400 की परचेज़ पे टर्की पे उन्होंने रोप डाला। लेकिन इंडिया के साथ ये सीन नहीं हो सकता। इंडिया एक ग्लोबल पावर है, इकनॉमिकली भी और वैसे भी। और इस वक्त करंट सिनेरियो में हर कंट्री की ज़रूरत है। तो वो S-400 की परचेज़ पे इंडिया पे वैसे रोप नहीं डाल सकता, बल्कि हमने देखा है कि बड़ी खामोशी नज़र आई है हमें। तो ये जो फ्रेंडशिप है ये आपको पता है कि जियोपॉलिटिक्स में बहुत मायने रखती है। मतलब मैं तो ये समझता हूँ अनकंडीशनल फ्रेंडशिप है, बाय चॉइस जिसे कहते हैं ना फ्रेंड्स, वो वाली फ्रेंडशिप है। तो इस बारे में आप क्या कहेंगे, कमेंट सेक्शन में बताइएगा। मिलेंगे नेक्स्ट वीडियो में, अपना ख्याल रखिएगा। सी यू गाइस।